Sorry, the clicker. A very warm welcome to all the Banaras people. And I assume there are people from other states also, so let me also just give a very warm welcome to the people from the south. I hail from south of the country. And a very warm welcome for the people from the north of the country. Why should I miss the west and the east? A very warm welcome to the west of the country and to the east. Sorry, we also have a northeast and a southwest and a southeast and a southwest. There's a part of the country around, and a very warm welcome. And I saw someone from the other country also here, so a very warm welcome for the people from the Asia. I'm sure, must have been from Asia, if not, must be the Europe. Okay, a very warm welcome to everyone from around the world here. Thank you. You know, there's some lives, there are people who do stand-up comedies. I am sure that you guys have seen around the stand-up comedies around. And there are few people whose life is a stand-up comedy. And it's quite unfortunate, one of them is me. So there's a part of it around, when I say that why is it a stand-up comedy around, what do I do around? Sometimes, as the introduction went around, I'm a con man. I could be just meeting you around anywhere on the road around and just conning you on something. Sometimes I'm just an identity changer, something which I constantly keep on doing, change my identities around. And one of these experiments around could lead us to different things. And this con man experiments, most of it happening across the borderline. I mean, we understand the borderline. I mean, when I'm talking about borderline, it's India-Pakistan border, India-Bangladesh border, India-China border, India-Nepal border, or Bhutan border, or a Burma border. So that's not an easy place to actually do a conmanship. It's not. And things can go wrong anytime around. You know this. But there was a precise reason why I wanted to do this, conmanships around. And the idea was, what do I find myself in? Who do I and where do I belong? And that's something what I call identity. I'm sure that you guys have an identity card along with you. And there is a reason behind it, to make sure that things are in proper, organized manner, to give you a sense of empowerment that you're a part of the community here. And that was the same way around. I was born up with a lot of labels attached, a lot of identities attached, in a community which is mixed. So I born up learning in an English medium school, grown up in a Telugu atmosphere, speaking an Urdu language at home. So it could be just a mixture of languages where you're just not sure where do you belong to. So one of these questions led me to what do I do ahead? What do I want to do? I was pursuing genetics. That was a very interesting and fascinating subject. You do a lot of research under the microscope asking yourself, hey man, this is something, this is, genes around, the RNAs, DNAs. And during that course of, inquiry around, I went in to try and find out my identity. 3 years of that education. And I did come up through one absolute peculiar subject. And one solution of it all. Under the microscope, I didn't find any genes which led me to study genetics. So I chucked off the college. I dropped out of the genetics, got into arts, started doing theater. That was the start of my introductions into art. But how do I just go about it? So I decided to go on a bicycle trip, cycling around, paddling to different places. It's fantasy traveling around. How many would you like to travel around this country? Can I have a raise of hands? Wonderful. And how many of you have already done some part of it? We all have done some part of it. Might be from home to Banaras is also a part of traveling around. Oh, yes. There is something. Oh. Okay, whatever it is. It works strange. It's like me around. Okay. So, as a part of this experiment, I decided to, just got out of college, left your television job. I went down to my parents around and said, Mom, Dad, I would just want to go on a bicycle trip around this country. That sounds very fascinating, cycle around. And my dad was looking, you're never into athleticism. You never worked out. You never went for a morning run, forget about a bicycling around. And that became actually a very strong point for me to convince them I can do this. My mom, as usual, emotional about it, sat down around with it, said, no, no, no. At the end, she got convinced on one point, he has never done this. 15 days down the line, he will fear the pains of it and he's going to come back. He will know what it takes to be actually paddling around because he has not done it. I said, okay, whatever it is, I'm not going to come back. So that 15 days actually never finished. I started moving around on a bicycle, trying to do things. So during the travel, there was a question mark, what do I do with it? The only thing that I know, travel and theater. So I tried to mix them together. And during my travel in different villages, I tried to experiment various forms of theater. Sometimes theater of oppressed, community theater, forum theater, or even the monologue standing up. I mean, imagine this place around a bicycle coming around and saying that, hey guys, I want to perform along with you. I mean, it's just, in the village, it's just like quite funny also when you do it on the street. Don't do that. You're going to get a couple of blasting around and people just look like, So that's how it, and then you have a Hulya like this. I mean, I'm sure about it if you don't meet me here on this forum around and if you have seen me somewhere on the out, I'm sure you would not have come down and said, hey man, it was wonderful talking to you. So that was the whole part of experiment I was just trying to get introduced to around. 3 years of rigorous traveling on a bicycle from different places, Andaman, Lakshadweep, Tamil Nadu, it was beautiful. Marvelous, I should say. As usual, traveling really leaves you speechless. It was. And then you're actually entering into different eras. You're moving into the rural of the country to perform. You're getting into social injustices. You're getting into human rights violations. You're getting into, issues of people which are very, very important to you. And it is going to personally affect you when you're on road. So for me, the travel actually left me with questions than answers. It was just more confusing. What's happening around? Someone takes about it's my right, and someone else tells me it's my right. And it was just more and more confusing. What's happening around? I said, okay, my mom does on the telephone, 15 days, when's coming back? Are you coming back or not? You're fine or not? Have you had your food or not? And this is going along with part of it. Then I said, okay, let me just stop the bicycle around. And let me just walk around and take the lifts. It took me to a new definition of what I was trying to do actually. Imagine yourself on the road, moving on your two-wheeler or a four-wheeler. A man like this just walking across, showing a thumb. Out of nowhere, might be at a town or might be on a highway. What would be your reaction? How would you give a lift? Would you give a lift? Okay. So it was very interesting. I've done 50,000 kilometers this way around. So there are people who does give lifts. There are people who do trust. That is something beautiful. And to share it around, like one of the truck drivers, when Delhi to Agra when I was hitchhiking around, stopped around, okay. And, I was just asking like this around, the truck was passing around, he stopped it around, I rushed around, I got into it, and then he saw my face, and he was like, no, yaar, ye to londa nikla. So there are experiments on the road which is just like, unsure of, you do not know how do you react to it. And travel brings you different things around. I have been beaten up, bashed up at different places, especially if you're trying to be a con man around. But I'll come back to that stories. So during this hitchhiking period, there was something very fascinating I came across. I'm walking from the morning to evening, just trying to put a lift. The lifts are like a kilometer, a half kilometer, 1,000, might be 50 kilometers, or sometimes the whole day you're on a truck. Absolutely adventurous. Now, 5 very common things every day I was hearing from the last 2 to 3 years. Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? What do you do? Why do you do? What do you get out of it? Now this is something 5 times a day around. From the start to the end around. It's actually 35 times around. If I meet around 35 new people on the road around, this is a common question, something that you would ask. Something I would ask if I would met someone new around. There's nothing new around. So I went on giving, I am Akram Feroze, I'm traveling, I'm from Hyderabad, I'm traveling this, I'm trying to do theater, this is what I want to do, and this is what and this is just going on, and I was like, what the hell is happening around? Then I just decided one thing. He doesn't know who am I. I could be an Akram Feroze from Mongolia. He absolutely doesn't know who am I. Then I actually said, okay, fine. You guys want to play that who am I? I'm going to play along. Who am I? So I just actually started to change the subject around. And as along with it was, a lot of conflicts of, social justice that I was trying to see around in the world. There's a lot of issues that I wanted to get associated with. I was just trying to find out. There's a lot of questions for me. I said, okay. It was just initially, it was kind of prankster onto someone that's saying that, that was a time when Israel-Palestine conflict was going on very high around, and just I had to interact around us. I am from Palestine, Israel, mother Palestine, father Israel. I don't know. It just was like, during a war time, people take the sides of it, left and the right. And we all do during conflicts. Something which is on the headlines of the newspaper. It's a curiosity of human beings. We do try and think. I decided, okay, what happens if I actually change this around? And this was actually working. And I started to wonder how and why. And it was, again, I came back, it was identity. It was all about identity. I used to meet a lot of people from Andhra in different states, that is the Telugu state, and people would be so warm-loving. And I used to wonder if I was from Mongolia, would you be so warm-loving and say, Telugu, wow, how is it going with the cake? Telangana and Andhra Pradesh now. There's a common thing to talk. With the identities, we have no issues. We all have some identities in different forms. Why? Because it gives a sense of security, a sense of belonging, a sense of togetherness, which is very important for human being as we move around. We want to feel somewhere around that I get attached to something. I belong to somewhere around. That was a basic human nature around. But then why does that belonging shape doesn't get along with the other one around? What happens to it? Why is it that it cannot find the commonality between? And that's also, as a traveler, there was a dream of mine to go to Hyderabad, to Russia, via Moscow, via Pakistan, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan. There's a hell lot of it to explore in this world. I wanted to just walk through, take a lift around and just get into it. But there is one minor problem around. They had the borders between and there were wars going along. And you just cannot trespass it. And I was talking to my friends around and I was very disappointed here. These are issues of between the countries. It's just difficult. I just want to walk through. I don't want to go in and fly around. I'm going to take on my legs around and I'll walk around. I want to meet people. I want to talk to people. And then one of my friends said, okay, I completely understand with you. It's okay. Relax down. Think rationally. We have a bigger subjects. We have bigger conflicts. We have bigger issues. Think rationally. That's when I said, okay, think rationally. That's where, the bulk. Yes, think rationally. Yes, I'm going to sit down with you and think rationally. Tell me what's the difference around. Difference is the same. We have the same landscape changes. We have the food changes. We have the culture changes. We have the language changes. We have everything from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, the same changes. And I'm not stopping anywhere around. It's the same distance, 3,800 kilometers from Kanyakumari to Kashmir. Then it's 4,000 something from Wagah border to Moscow around. It's the same landscapes, the changes of language. And yet we belong to one. There we cannot. What? Political ideology? Or that sense of belonging? Then I started to do research onto borders, trying to understand what does it mean to people. Why do we hail into? Is it the idea of a borderless we'll talk about? Yes, it's a wonderful. How many of us would like to have a world passport or a global citizenship? Yes, I am a global citizen or a world passport. I'm sure a lot of young people do. How many people like to have a world passport? Traveling across this world? Yes, a lot of us. But then world without borders comes with something very beautiful. It's called but. Of course, two buts have a border, but still, this also comes with a but. Okay. Yeah, bad relationships and these things. One thing I strongly believe, a borderless world is only feasible or practical or reality is through trade. Trade which you do between two communities, two options. But then trust. Where do you want to trade? That's where the trust is. I want to put my money, where do I trust in? How do you build the trust into the relationships? I was trying to understand this. That's when I came across, in 1900, we had 100 nations. 1950s, we have approximately around 150 nations. Presently, 2016, according to United Nations data, 193 nations. So that way, are we dividing ourselves more on a borderless world? Absolutely not, actually. This is the idea of sovereignty is different from a borderless world. Sovereignty is something very personal, to individual, to a community, to the association one which lives in. But then, this is a new sovereign nation which are coming around, which has a conflict, which has history attached to it, which has sometimes borders, sometimes have a lot of bloodshed along with it. So what you do around is, I went through the borderline of India, Pakistan. I was walking and hitchhiking. The idea was to cover the whole borderline, doing theater in these villages, trying to understand what is border mean to me. So I decided to ask kids around while I was talking, what do border means to them, to the kids over there. One thing they constantly kept on coming, end. I mean, that's what people living at the border state, the kids growing up. Because how would we teach an identity kid around living at a border space around that you cannot go that side? How would you actually rationally explain a kid, what do you mean by that? Enemy was the second one. Third one was other. So there was one of the experiments that I was doing in this village, one of the community theater part of it, was to get the kids together. We are doing a small theater in which the village has a lot of epilepsy problem, Mirgi, which is called in Hindi. And kids decided that we want to do it. And whenever there is epilepsy, the people would go to the superstitious beliefs around going to this take sadhus that people would be fine with it. The kid said that no, it works along with the doctor. One of the kids says that. Okay, fine. So one of the character we had was across the border kind of. We said the doctor is going to be from outside of that. So they performed it around. So when the person has to be healed, one of the kid runs to gets the other character who is from the other place, other town or other border side of it, gets him here, okay, and he heals him across. That's fine, wonderful, theater done. One of the kids comes up to me around and says, aren't the people on the other side our enemy? And that's the whole idea. I felt that, that art has the reflection. This was one of the play around which we were doing in that village. Okay. And the kid comes up to me and says, isn't the other person enemy? And that's a huge thing. I felt that the art actually can make people think. Might be, yes, something which I cannot belong, because it is called identity perspective. The world lacks about identity perspective, that how do I see borders and identities, and how do I see myself standing in that shoes. And that is where art actually changes. The other kind of experiment I do, which is called invisible theater. I mean, if you guys have heard about it, it's invisible, the theater which happens. You must have seen it across everywhere. It's an invisible theater. It's a common theater. So the part of this invisible theater, I used to walk in different zones. Rasik, who was co-speaker around, is a very old friend of mine. So we both were traveling in a metro along. And we're just having a conversation. If you have been in Delhi and the Delhi metro space around, there's a lot of, bustling, a lot of people talking, any common space you take it up. And I just started, यार मेरी क्या गलती है? मुझे तो लड़के पसंद है. मम्मी पापा मानते नहीं. Now it was a personal conversation between two people around. And I just said that, what's my mistake? I'm just trying all my best that I could. But just the parents just do not listen to me. I just like a guy. They say that it's just ill. I mean, how do I feel about it? And then you see the reaction about the people who think it's a personal conversation getting into it. Oh, their legs are moving around. Okay. They try to move away from you. Okay. But their ears and eyes are absolutely to it. We are curious animals. We would like to really sneak peek an accident around. Might be stop or not, but we would just like to see it around what's happened because it's something different, something new. That's human curiosity. So that's fine. You got them involved. They became the characters, the people who would react into it. क्या बात कर रहा है? What is he talking about here? Okay. And the same character at the end of the whole play around comes back and says, the people will keep on talking. I can understand. Now you have narrated a whole story around in which you have involved that character to actually change the perspective, because most of the identity perspective things around we do not experience in hand. We have never met a personal story. We have heard a systematic story. We connect to personal stories much larger. We had experiments here. Anywhere you go, we connect. If we have met someone personally, we connect to them larger. He's never told that it was a part of theater. And that is what he does is, when he goes out of it, he talks about it. It's a gossip. And one of the common things that I used to see was, the guy, as soon as they get out, he was that, have you heard that? And this is a common notion. And you wonder why, what? And this is gossip. We are a very gossipy animal. We want to talk something different. Might be how much intrinsic we be during a topic, during a discussion, we do it. So that's the part of experiments that I do during my con man signals around. So this is the experiments I believe, if we really want to think of a borderless world, if you really want to think that, yes, there is a lot of options that we can change in identity perspective, I believe art is a manner, art is a method, because it's something brings a different perspective in us. Thank you very much.